Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pizza Motor Chaos. This is your host, Dave. I got a line special guest, jet driver Jerry McCart. How you doing, Jerry?
Absolutely fantastic.
So, how's the jet car been running for you this year?
Actually, running really well. We've done quite a few shows. We're up to almost 20 shows this year, and we're finally down to our last three or four. I've got a couple that are still in limbo, but three or four more shows, and we'll go out to Vegas to the International Air Show Council Convention in December, and hopefully celebrate a successful and safe season.
Now, you have two jets?
I actually have a jet dragster, a jet funny car, and then the triple engine jet powered semi truck.
The one of them is a Willie, right?
Yeah, I got a 1941 Willys funny car.
Yeah,
That's Wicked Willie.
yeah, that's a nice car.
Thank you.
So now, let's rewind the clock, Jerry. How did you get into drag racing?
Uh, my life story is kind of crazy. I actually was conceived at the Daytona Beach Race in 1956 and came on to race go-karts and win national championships and 4 world championships in that. Then moved into NASCAR late models, then NASCAR late models into alcohol top dragsters, and then from that into the exhibition jets. And this is my 12th season in jets.
So now, what year did you get your jet license?
It's 12 years ago, so it would have been 2005, what was it, 17, 2004, something like that.
So who signed off? Who signed off for your jet license?
My license was signed by Elaine Larson and Freddie Query. Freddie Sibley.
Nice. So 12 years you've been doing this, huh?
Yep.
And you wouldn't change it for anything, right?
No, I enjoy it. You know, I'm getting older. I'm 62 years old now, and I still get to go to the races and run really good speeds. And with the jets, you know, we're being an exhibition. We're not doing the hustle between rounds, and we get more time to spend with the fans and everything, and sign autographs and answer questions. And it's just a more laid back kind of deal, and I do enjoy it.
Yeah, I think Bob Most is getting up there in age. I think he might be retiring soon.
You know, I love Bob to death. He's a great guy. Yeah, enjoy talking to him every time we run events together. In fact, him and I will be together at Bradenton Motorsports Park for the Snowbird Nationals in the Night of Fire there, December 7th, I believe it is. And I keep telling Bob when I grow up, I want to be just like him. He's my hero. He's one of the founders of our sport. You got to have a lot of respect for him, and he's done a fantastic job. If he ever does retire, I'm going to hate to see him go.
Yeah. So I have a friend wanted me to ask you a question, Jerry. They said, like, when you fire up the jet on the line, he was asking why you don't have a lot of fire. It's mostly smoke.
I do both. I do smoke and fire. I like to cover the crowd up with smoke. Smoke is my thing. And then I also have onboard pyrotechnics that I shoot 5 mortar launchers on my night shows as well.
So now with the three jets, what kind of jet engines do you have in all three of them?
I've got the GEJ85s. It's the same one that Larson's and all those guys use and Freddie uses, and most all of the guys in the jet dragsters and jet funny cars use. And I did that primarily because, you know, I had good knowledge of that motor, and I had good contacts with people to help me with that motor if I had issues that I couldn't resolve. And I actually happened to have, you know, some of them laying around. So to build the truck, I thought it'd be best to go with what I was familiar with and what I had available.
Now, do you run all three of them on the same kind of jet fuel?
Oh yeah, it's all Jet A.
All right. Now, do you take all three of them out to the track with you at the same time?
Oh no, no, I never. In fact, I've retired. The Glory Days Jet Dragster's retired, and it's hanging on the wall in the shop. The Jet Funny car, I still bring it out, you know, 4 or 5 times a year to do events with it. But very rarely will I take both of them to the same event. I have, but it's a lot of work to run both of them.
Now, do you do any shows like at the airports?
Oh yeah, I do a ton of air shows. About 75% of what I do is air shows. In fact, my next one is at Punta Gorda the first weekend of November, and that's just a fantastic show down in Punta Gorda, Florida. And I've been doing that. Believe it or not, that was my very first entry into the air show industry was at Punta Gorda for the promoter down there at the time named Bob Hall. He saw me racing at Bradenton and testing there at the Night of Fire. And he comes over and asked me, would I like to race an airplane? I'm like, absolutely. So he invited me to his air show, and I have been there every year, and the people there are family. That's where I always like to end up my season.
So now, after all these years of doing this, what still keeps you passionate about it?
Well, I'm never going to, I refuse to grow up just like Bob. So the people are probably what keeps me passionate about it. The kids that are so involved in computers and video games and cell phones and stuff, when they come out to a racetrack and they are genuinely interested enough to put the phone down and talk to you about your truck, I probably enjoy the interaction with kids as much as I do driving the trucks.
Now, besides Bob Moats, do you have any other jet car heroes, jet drivers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's Les Shockley started the deal off, and doing the air shows with Shockwave. And Shockwave has now been sold and taken over by Chris and Neil Darnell, and they are a fantastic group of people, really good friends of mine, and we enjoy running together when we can. And, the Larsons actually are who got me involved in jet racing. I was actually just pitted next to them at an event at Bradenton when I was running my alcohol dragster, and just got to chatting about it. I said, you guys running as fast as we are, and y'all are doing near the work. And he said, no, I changed the oil in mine a couple of times last year. So I just got talking to him, and, I was getting older, so less work, less crew members to go on the track. I could take 2 crew members and do everything we needed, not have to take the team of 6. And it just slowed things down and relaxed everything. And, I went and bought my first engine from Chris and Elaine, and we're still really good friends. We do stuff together a lot. And they got me in it, so I'm, partial to those guys. And I've actually signed, several of the license for some of the people that have came along and have driven for Chris and Elaine. Freddie Sibley has helped me quite a bit. I keep saying Freddie Query. I raced against Freddie in NASCAR late models a lot. So anytime I say Freddie in racing, it's either one of the two. But Freddie Sibley helped me quite a bit with teaching me about the jet engines and, loaning me parts or tools to take them apart that I didn't have at the time. So, I've got a lot of people that I greatly respect and like racing with. There's not really a bad person in the bunch that I can think of.
Now you're talking about Freddie Sibley Jr., right?
Correct.
Right.
Well, I've dealt with Freddie Sr. too as well. He made me some of my burner seal pumps when I first got started and was having burner seal issues. And he said, my dad makes a seal for that. So I got with Senior, and he made me some seals.
Awesome. So now, what's the quickest pass you made with the jet truck?
The fastest I've been in a quarter mile is 2:23. The fastest I have ran the jet truck is 374, and that was at Tyndall Air Force Base in about a 2,000-foot pass in 9.5 seconds. So that was a really strong run.
How about with the Jet Funny car?
Jet Funny car has been 193, I believe. No, I'm sorry, 293. And the Jet Dragster has been 304.
Now, you said you drive a ACA dragster too?
I did before I got into jets. But, I mean, I could go win an event and lose $4,000 or $5,000. So if I can do an exhibition jet and go out there and, kind of self-support the hobby and, walk away not, losing my billfold at the event, I can still keep racing.
So how many years did you drive the ACA dragster for?
Just for 2 years. It didn't take me long to understand that was a big road and took a lot of money.
So how'd you do with that?
Actually, we did pretty well. Our very first event ever was the Outlaw Nationals, and I had never driven dragsters prior to that. And I went up to the Frank Hawley School and got my certifications and had a really, really good crew chief, Ron Kinzior, and John Kinzior. And he kind of guided me along, and we made it all the way to the final round at the Outlaw Nationals, the first event we ran, and I missed winning the race in a pedal fest against Charlie Gambino. And we're normally running 590s, and this was like a 9.5-second pass, and Charlie and I were pedaling our brains out, got out laughing, and I lost it by like 9/1000ths of a second. But it was a great evening and a great way to start my alcohol drag racing career.
So now, Jerry, what was it like for the first time ever getting behind the wheel of a jet car?
Well, it was amazingly, when you start doing your jet licensing and everything, you start out where you do some engine-only runs, and then you do full runs engine-only, then you do a little, 60-foot blast on the burner. But I'll tell you, the first time I laid into that burner and ran it a full eighth of a mile, I got out going, this is amazingly fast and smooth all at the same time. And then when I came back and made my first quarter-mile pass in a jet dragster was 286 miles an hour. And it amazed me that car pulled as hard at the end of that quarter mile as it was pulling at the eighth. And it was just, those things will just keep getting faster. It's amazing. I mean, a top fuel car gains about 60 miles an hour between the eighth and the quarter when they were running quarter mile. We gain over 100. So it still pulls really hard.
Wow.
I tell people they are very, very smooth and things are going very good until they're not. And when those things start to get out of control, there is no driving them back to the groove. There is no trying to be a hero and save it. You shut it off, you get the chutes out, and you live to run another day. Because that's things like a bottle rocket with no stick if it gets out of shape.
Now, you said currently you only have two crew members?
Correct. Corbin Hopkins out of Bradenton, Florida, is one of my crew guys. And then I've got Pete Lannon, who's also out of Bradenton, and they split up the duties and go back and forth to the events that they can go to.
Now, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions?
No, I'm not very superstitious. And early on in my career, my racing number was 13 when I was racing go-karts as a kid. And my dad used to have the joke that people would tell us, well, isn't 13 bad luck? And my dad would say, it is for y'all. So I've never really been superstitious. And, the color green didn't bother me. Peanuts don't bother me. 13 doesn't bother me. I just go down our checklist and do everything the same way every time and, take care of our I's and T's and get them all dotted and crossed and then go for it.
Now, do you have any sponsors?
I do. My corporate sponsor is Lincoln Welders, and I've been with them probably going on 10 years now. And then I've got several other sponsors. Butler Built Motorsports out of Charlotte, North Carolina is one of my associate sponsors. And Racing Radios, communications company out of Forest Park, Georgia, who does all the NASCAR communications, has been with me actually throughout my racing career. Since I started racing karts with communications, they've been with me. And then I've got, several local sponsors that help me out. Southern Auto Electric takes care of all the starters and everything they take care of all the starters and everything on it. And then T&M Heat and Air Conditioning, a local sponsor there out of Jonesboro, Stockbridge, Georgia. They were nice enough to hook me up with a nice brand new 3-ton AC unit in my transporter. And it feels so good. And one of the guys that I go to, one of my go-to guys in building these trucks, I build these trucks myself, and there's actually only one man that I've ever had any input into my chassis building at all, and I thank him, religiously, is Ben Worthy. And at one time, Ben was Carcraft Magazine Chassis Builder of the Year, and Ben and I can sit down and I can come up with an idea, and he'll see it differently, and he'll come back the next day with the idea, and then his idea will give me another idea, and then about a week later, we finally come together on what we want to do, and it's worked out great for us.
That's awesome. So now, Jerry, what goes in the preparation to get the jet truck ready for a weekend?
Just normal maintenance and check out. We have to charge the batteries. We check all of the air pressures and stuff. We check the tires, for any nicks or any cuts or punctures or anything. We check the body work, make sure it's on, nothing's loose there. We check fuel contamination and drain fuel, clean fuel filters, check parachutes, repack them on a regular basis. Charge the radios, and we go through a pre-race sequence to where every button that is in the truck, there's actually 34 buttons and switches in that truck and 5 levers. So it's quite a busy cockpit, but we go through every one of those and check their function before we go to the line.
Now, what are some of your favorite tracks to go on?
NHRA stuff, tracks, Bradenton Motorsports Park's my home track. I call that home. I now live at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and we had quite a great time doing the Friday night drags down there. We were rattling the condo, shaking the windows in the condo, and actually knocked out a couple of can lights in one of the units. So that was a good night. And then my other really track I really like is up at US 131 in Martin, Michigan. Those guys up there, they put on a great show every year, and I've been up there now 3 years in a row, I think it is, and should be going back next year. Then we do Grand Bend, Ontario, which I enjoy going up to Canada. I got a lot of friends and stuff up there. So, there's each track has its own personality, and you develop friendships at every one you go to. And like I said, in the NHRA side and the airshow side, I haven't really developed any bad feelings or mixed feelings about them. They've all treated me really well, and the crowds have been fantastic. So pretty good with that. I went to Maryland Dragway for the first time this year, and had a good run up there with Sean. That was the first time I'd ran with him, and he runs a great show. So, these are professional level tracks that we run at for the most part. We did something interesting here a couple of weeks ago that I haven't really been doing on my normal tour. I did the Eve of Destruction at Elko Speedway in Elko, Newmarket, Minnesota. And I went out, it's a little circle track, and I went out and made 3 or 4 laps around the circle track, did some smoke and fire, and came back in the pits. And then at the end of the night, I went back out and made about 3 laps in the dark, and a lot of fire, a lot of smoke there. And then I launched my pyro, and then I pulled down to the center of the figure 8. They'd already had a school bus figure 8 and a trailer race, so it was quite an interesting evening. And I pulled down and stopped, and they had the Lull forklift lift up the back end of a Class C motorhome and put it in behind my truck. And I burnt the Class C motorhome to the ground, and the fans, our favorite saying was, and the crowd went wild. They loved that. So we had a good time with that. And after that happened, I just was in conversation tonight with a gentleman named Mo out of Florida that does 9 events a year, and his is called Tour of Destruction. And he found out that I'd done that. So now him and I are talking about 2020 and doing several of his events. So, accidents happen and opportunities arise, and you just try to take advantage of them.
Okay. I lost my train of thought here. Hold on a second.
No problem. We just got back from Midland, Texas, too. We had a great air show out at Midland, Texas. Tons of warbirds, really good people out there. They ran a great show, and I'm hoping to go back out there, again.
Okay, I was going to ask you, what are some of your favorite airfields to run on?
My home airfield is PDK, which is Peachtree DeKalb Airport in Atlanta, and they have a good neighbor event every year, and it's actually a free show to the public because this airport is basically in downtown Atlanta, and it used to be on the outskirts, but Atlanta kind of grew and overtook it. So every year they bring in an air show with, really, really great acts, some of the top acts in the industry, and we put on a show for one day. It's all free for all the neighbors and anybody that wants to come. So that's a good one. And then Punta Gorda, like I say, that's my first and longest running show. There's a little airfield that I love going to up in Greenwood Lakes, New Jersey, that I've been doing for about 8 years now. And it's up on top of the mountain in the New Jersey mountains, and it's beautiful country up there. And Tim Wagner runs a great show. And, I've had a great amount of friends and contacts up there. So it's just nice to be able to travel around the country and know that wherever you're going, you're going to run into somebody and talk about some old times.
Now, you prefer quarter mile or eighth mile?
Oh, I'd rather run a quarter. If we're going to go, let's go fast. I think the last 8 miles I ran down at in Puerto Rico. I did a couple of shows down there, and actually my car got caught down there in the hurricane, and the promoter there was nice enough to get the car and everything up. I loaded it back up in the container to ship it back, but they were not shipping anything out because the storm was coming, so he was nice enough to get it take it up in the hills to his house, and literally chain it to his home and take care of my equipment. And then I finally, it took us a while, but it took us about 6 months, but we got everything back, and nothing was hurt. And he was having a baby in the middle of all that, and he called me, 2 months in from the hospital, because that's the first time he had cell service, and he said, my house doesn't have any power, and we don't have this, we don't have that. I said, there's a generator in that trailer chained to your house. He goes, well, it's locked. I'm like, cut the lock off. So he cut the lock off, took the generator out, and that was able to help his family and the new baby, so I was glad I could do that.
Oh, that was nice, because he helped you out, and you were able to help him out.
Exactly, and that's the way this industry works, and that's, the promoters are glad to see us come in, and the fans are glad to see us come in, because we come to most of these tracks usually only once a year, occasionally twice. And a lot of times the people will tell us, we only come to the track when the Jets are here.
Now, Jerry, where do you get all your fire safety equipment from?
All of my stuff, it actually comes from two different places. I have Impact Racing that I've been on board with since it was Simpson, back when Bill owned it the first time. I've been involved with them, and they make my fire suits and my gloves and helmets. And then Paul Ciali at SST does my parachutes and my parachute can wraps and everything, and my tether lead covers and that sort of thing.
Now, your 3 jet cars, I don't know, the one you don't drive no more, but did you built them all?
I built everything from scratch.
Now, for the semi-truck, how long did it take to build that?
I actually, the what I call the hard building time was just a little bit less than 2 years, but I went back and forth with NHRA for about probably 8 months to a year, because there hadn't been a new jet truck built since Shockwave was built, and that truck was 30 years old, and the rules were outdated for these trucks. And at the time, the roll bar rules were 1.5 inches 083, and they're like, we need to change the rules, but we don't know what we're going to do yet. So they came up and they said 1.5 inches or 1 5/8 083, and I'm like, guys, that's not going to get it. And they're like, yeah, we knew you were going to argue. I was like, no, you don't understand. It needs to be 1 3/4 095. These trucks are 6,000 pounds. They're going, on an air show 300 miles an hour. We need bigger roll bars than what you say. So once NHRA figured out that I wasn't trying to beat them down, I was trying to make the truck safer. It kind of shortened our time frame a little bit. And once I built the truck, I actually had to take it to Gainesville, Florida, to the Gator National, so that all of the national inspectors could go over it. And they came back and said, you've done a great job building the truck. We're going to tell people if they're interested in building a truck, they need to come look at yours. So I took that as a great compliment from NHRA, and they put my sticker on, and the rest is history.
Now, do you plan to build any other jets in the future?
I've got one in my mind right now. I'm trying to acquire from NASA a GE J79, which is the same engine that Bob Moats runs, and I want to build a super truck. Unfortunately, it's not going to be legal for NHRA. It's going to be designed for the air show industry, and that reason is I'm going to build it with 3 seats in it, so I can do press rides. Now, I'm not going to do press rides at super excessive speeds, but I am going to be able to go out, do the burner pops, do the smoke and fire, do the donuts and everything, and then do a launch with them and, get them to 150 miles an hour pretty quick, and then shut it off and keep it safe, but let them experience the thrust of that engine. And I'm going to use the J79 in that one.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I've got a list in my phone of people that already will pay $3,000 to ride in that truck. So.
Wow. So now, what would you consider to be some of the milestones of your racing career?
Well, I've won 11 national championships in go-kart racing and 7 world championships. That was quite a mark. And then I set a world speed record on a go-kart back in 1983 at 156.212 miles an hour at Talladega in the WKA Nationals there. I've ran a couple of bush races. Those were fun. But I'll tell you, I've got a really interesting thing that's happening to me this weekend. One of my sponsors is Statement Marine out of Florida, who builds some of the most exotic center console offshore fishing boats, and they actually build a twin turbine cat boat that runs over 220 miles an hour. But Todd is the owner of the 1970 Daytona Superbird that Richard Petty drove, and he owns that car. He had put it up for auction, and it went up to $3.5 million, and he refused it. He hadn't really told me what he was wanting to get, so no telling. But this car is immaculate. It was restored by Petty Enterprises, and Todd called me last week and said, I've got a problem. And I'm like, well, you call me because you obviously think I can help you with the problem you've got. He goes, yeah. He said, I've got to go out of the country and I'm not going to be available. And they want my Petty Superbird to pace the field at the Talladega 500. Will you take my motorhome and trailer and car over and do that? And I'm like, let me think. Yeah, I'll do that. So I'm going to get to drive one of the most iconic NASCARs that's ever been on a racetrack. And I'll actually be pacing with the K&K Insurance 1970 Superbird, and also with Richard Childress, who will be driving the last Dale Earnhardt car to win a race. He'll be there. And there may be more, but I know those are the three top markers in the parade.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's quite an honor.
Yep. Now, throughout your drag racing career, have you had any accidents or close calls?
I did wreck the Glory Days Jet Dragster. That's why I retired it. It happened at testing, actually, and I had a tire come apart, and the car got back and forth across the track, and before I could get it slowed down enough, it got up against the wall. So I could have repaired the car, but it was at the time that NHRA was doing a rule change and making everything that went over 250 miles an hour have the 2-inch padded seat. And this car was already so tight and so close on me, I could not have put that 4 inches in that seat. So the main cage was fine. I could have put a front clip and a rear clip on it and, been back on the track in about 3 weeks. But I decided I'd already built the funny car and it was going well. I decided to hang it on the wall and then move on to the funny car, and was already kind of toying with the idea of building the truck. So I just focused my energy on that and made a great wall ornament.
Now, do you ever do any car shows?
Yeah, I do one car show a year, and that's at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and it's called Motorama. But I live at Atlanta Motor Speedway part-time, so it's my home track, and a lot of my friends and all are there. My family gets to come out because I grew up in the Atlanta area, and they come out and hang out at the show that day, so that's kind of cool.
All right, now I'm going to ask you a few fun questions. Are you ready for a few fun questions?
Sure.
Now, outside of the drag racing thing, you have any hobbies?
I would say no, because probably my passion, not only for driving the jets, is building them. And I enjoy building and fabricating. And I think one of the joys that I get in this deal, being sponsored by Lincoln Welders, is that I carry an onboard welding system, a TIG welding system on my trailer. And probably no less than 10 to 15 times a year, a competitor will come to me and go, do you have a welder so I can weld my part so I can get in the race? Or an airplane that's got, hey, I broke this in my MiG-21. Can you fix this? And I've been able to help these guys and get them back in the air show or back in the race. And we do all of that for free. And just to be able to help somebody with what Lincoln is giving me back, I enjoy that as well. But, I am flying. I started my flying lessons again, so I guess that would probably be my only hobby outside of racing.
Now, Jerry, if you were able to do time traveling and go back in the time, would you do anything differently with your racing career?
I'm scared to go back and do that over again. I survived that once, and I better not try that. But, yeah, of course there'd be things you did differently. I'd probably get into the exhibition side of racing a lot sooner. And, if you could go back and change your tire pressure in a race you could have won, of course you'd do that as well. So, I try not to look back too much. I feel like the future is bright and moving forward, and has got great things to offer. So just head down and go at it.
Now, have you won any trophies or plaques in your racing career at all?
That's funny. I have just cleaned out when I moved from Atlanta the first time out of my mom's house, and she said all the trophies had to go. There were 1,149 trophies, and fortunately we broke several of them moving then. So when I moved and I got married the first time, my wife had like 4 eyes in the front of her head going, these trophies are not all coming to our house. So I actually took a dump trailer of trophies to the dump. And now I have got, my Daytona Cups that I've won the World Championships, the Sterling Silver Cups, the National Championship Cups, races that really mean something to me. And I'll tell you, this is a kind of a funny story, but there's some names you may remember. As kids, when we were 8 and 9 years old, playing in the dirt at the go-kart races,
right?
Some of the other kids that were racing go-karts with me is Scott Pruitt, who's an absolutely phenomenal, without a doubt, the best road racer and kart racer I had ever raced against in my life. Mark Dismore and Scott Goodyear. So all of us were just kids playing in the dirt racing, go-karts together, and, came up, and those 3 guys all made it, and drove some Indy cars. So quite a good group of kids we had.
Wow. Now, can you think of one most embarrassing moment you've had on the track?
I had a pretty bad fire the first of this year.
That's not embarrassing. That's not embarrassing.
Yeah, that was a bad deal, and that's embarrassing, because obviously when I go, I like to perform to my ability and not cause any problems and not cause any havoc and not scare any people. It was a pretty bad fire. It was actually in Titusville, Florida, at the Tyco Warbirds Air Show, and we came back, and we basically from the cab back rebuilt that truck in about 5 months, and since then we've ran, I'll have to look at the logbook, but I'm going to say it's close to 96 or 98 passes, including our test runs, doing full shows, and have not had a minute's problem. But it was a faulty part, and it was something that I didn't catch, and a fuel line blew off and separated from a fitting, and it dumped 42 gallons of fuel on the fire. So it was a pretty hot thing, and I had shut off valves, but unfortunately the valves were engulfed in the fire. So we take a lesson from everything that happens to us, and I went back and added electronic shut-off valves so I can shut each of the 6 fuel lines off individually, and when I pull the parachute or I shut the master switch off, it chops the fuel off at the tank. So if I ever did have another fire of that level, the only thing that would burn would be the fuel that was in the line, from the tank to the motor.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call that embarrassing. I would call that more of a mishap. Yeah.
Well, it was a mishap, but it's embarrassing to me because I build the trucks and I maintain the trucks and I work on the trucks and drive the trucks. So all fingers point to me. It's ultimately all my fault, and it's my responsibility to make it right.
Yeah. Understandable. So now, as far as the sport of drag racing goes, Jerry, do you have a bucket list of things you haven't done yet that you would still like to do?
No, I kind of got into drag racing accidentally. Actually, I was about to I'd quit running the NASCAR late model series and stuff, and was going to buy a winged outlaw sprint car. But I had retired and moved to Florida, and that stuff's up north, and I didn't want to travel a lot. And I just bought a nice new home down there on the water. I couldn't see myself pressure washing this muddy sprint car off on this brick paver driveway every Saturday morning. So I decided to get into drag racing, and luckily I was on the board of directors with Macy's Miracle Foundation down in Florida, and John Kenzior and his dad and everybody, Ron Kenzior, helped me a great deal. And why don't you get into drag racing? I was like, well, I don't like drag racing. I said, I don't understand how I went too fast and lost. He said, well, we only do heads-up racing and blown alcohol cars. And I'm like, well, I like those long, skinny ones with the motor in the back. He said, well, Dad just bought one that he's going to part out. So I went over and looked at it, and we struck a deal there that day. And he sent me to Frank Hawley's school, and within 6 months, we were racing.
All right, now this should be easy question for you, but some people find it difficult because they can't figure out which one's their favorite. What is your favorite food to eat?
What is what now?
Your favorite food to eat?
Favorite food to eat?
Yes, sir.
I would have to, without a doubt, say I love eating filet mignon at the Japanese steakhouse on the grill in front of me.
All right. So what's your favorite beverage?
Diet Coke.
Now, do you drink alcohol?
Very rare. I drink once a year, and that's at the International Air Show Council convention in Vegas. I've never been a big drinker. I've pretty much been the designated driver my whole life. In fact, I think it was my 25-year class reunion. I had, some of my old buddies come up and say, "Hey, we want to talk to you outside." I was like, "Are you going to beat me up or something?" They're like, "No, I want to talk to you." So we went outside, and they said, "Man, we just want to say thank you for all the times you drove us home in high school when we were being stupid and drinking and driving and stuff like that, and we've never said it, but thank you." So, I don't have a problem. I can go out with my friends. They know they're in good hands. I'll bring them home, and we'll go from there.
Now, do you watch movies at all, Jerry?
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
50 First Dates.
Yeah, that's a good one. What's your favorite music?
80s. I like the 80s classic stuff.
When you say 80s classic, you mean like what kind of music?
It's rock and roll. AC/DC I like. Aerosmith I like. Some of the high energy stuff. John Cougar Mellencamp. His theme song. My theme song he wrote is "Glory Days," so that's one of my favorites. So that type of music in that era, dance music from the 80s.
Okay, now, when you were a kid growing up, what was your favorite cartoon?
Bugs Bunny Roadrunner.
If you weren't doing this jet car thing, what do you think you'd be doing with your life?
I'd probably still own my fabricating company. I used to build NASCAR Winston Cup tractor trailers, and I did that for 22 years. I'd probably still be fabricating, I guess, and doing it for everybody else. But I'm happy where I'm at.
Now, when you're out on a track for a day of exhibition jet car, do you eat regularly, or do you eat very light?
I usually eat pretty light on the days that until after I'm done. And it's just because my fire suit's a little tight. So I can't eat too much before I go out. I won't be able to zip it up.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you want to be able to fit into the fire suit all the time.
Yeah.
Now, what would you consider to be the fondest memory of your whole racing career?
I've been fortunate that there's been so many. I guess one of my biggest highlights early on was winning my first world championship in the 250 shifter carts. That was really, quite a moment in history. And I'll be honest with you, me being able to drive that 43 Superbird this next weekend in Talladega is definitely going to rank right up there that I've been the one that's been chosen to drive that car for this day.
Now, what's been your fondest memory with the jet truck so far?
Wow, there's been so many. The truck is so much fun, and I've raced against so many, other airplanes and world class. I've been able to meet world class aerobatic pilots, and have cocktails with them in Vegas when we're done at the end of the year. Just being involved in the air show industry is really nice, and same thing with the NHRA side. We get to meet a lot of promoters and spend time with them. I guess probably my best would be that 374-mile-an-hour pass at Tyndall Air Force Base. If I had to say the one best pass I've had, that would be it.
Now, when you're in the pits, are you able to put kids up into that truck?
What's that?
I said, when you're in the pit area, are you able to put kids up inside the truck?
I don't, because the inside of my truck is live, and I don't, if they turn a button on it's not supposed to be on, and I try to start the truck and don't get it, realigned. So I'll let them stand up in the side of it with the doors open, and I take photos with them, but I won't actually put them in the truck.
Now, if people listening want to find out your schedule and all that good stuff, what's the best way for them to follow you?
What's that now?
I said, if people listening to this interview want to find out where you're going to be at, find your schedule and all that good stuff, what's the best way for them to follow you?
Oh, go on to Facebook to McCart Jet Motorsports, and it's MCCART Jet Motorsports, and we post, our upcoming events there a week or so in advance to give everybody, a chance to come out and see us if we're going to be local and close enough to them that they can get there. There's a really cool event that's new that I would really recommend a lot of people come out to if they get a chance. In March this year at West Palm Beach, we're doing what's called the Festival of Fire, and it is an all-jet car weekend. It has jet funny cars, it has jet dragsters, it's got my jet truck, it's got people eating fire, it's got a flamethrower, it's all about fire, and it's all about kids and education and families, and Elaine Larson and Chris Larson put that on. They've got NASA's involved, and they have displays and stuff there. Florida Atlantic College has a display and all there. I have the Lincoln Welders stuff there. And it's kind of funny when I got started with Elaine and I, because Elaine was obviously sponsored by Miller at the time, and I was sponsored by Lincoln. And she was with Simpson, and I was with Impact, and I was a guy, she was a girl. So we'd go back and forth, and we'd always try to pit right across from one another. And it's amazing how the kids get into this, especially the little girls. Elaine and I will be shouting back and forth across the pitway at one another, just blowing each other up. And these little girls will come over and say, "You leave Elaine alone." So I'm like, you know what? She can't even cook. I ate dinner at their house one night, and we ended up at Colonel Sanders, and she burnt the brownies. So, But I'll tell you what, she can drive the wheels off of that jet car, and she's been great for the sport. And her and Chris have done a phenomenal job with the marketing and everything, execution of their program down there.
Yes, I would have to agree with you on that one. Well, Jerry, I want to thank you very much for taking time to do the interview.
No problem. Glad we could finally get it in.
Now, you have any final words, thank yous, any good stuff before we close?
There's been so many people in my life. My family, obviously, from the start. I don't know if they stood behind me when I started racing, or they were the ones that threw me into it. But however it happened, they've been beside me my whole life, and my family's everything. And I'm fortunate enough to have reconnected with a girl that I dated when I was 19, who stands strongly beside me in what I'm doing and is happy that I'm doing something that I love, and she's putting up with it. So I shout out to Terry and thank her for that.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Jerry, thanks again, and I wish you the best of luck with the last 4 events.
That works. Thank you for calling.
You have a great night.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
Bye bye.